Hey YouTube, Untamed here. So CNBC just did a feature on Amazon entering the automotive sale market, meaning just with a couple clicks of your mouse, you're soon going to be able to buy a vehicle on Amazon. Imagine that, hopping on Amazon real quick, buying some diapers, maybe some dog food, some toys for your kiddos, and a Hyundai real quick. That's going to be a reality here in a minute, and that is pretty wild to say out loud. So for those of you who frequent my channel, you already know I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to this kind of stuff, right? I have my doctorate in organizational psychology, really meaning like this is stuff that I am passionate about. I love understanding why companies and organizations do what they do, why they do it, what's the business model behind it, and what's that, near-term, long-term goals that they have in mind when they implement stuff like this. So in this video, I'm really going to talk through what I personally believe are the good things that could come from Amazon implementing this new pilot program, and then also wrap up with what could be very bad for the vehicle market if they were to lean forward and really capitalize on this. So that's what we'll talk about. I'll first start with just a real quick recap of what it is. What is Amazon doing? So in case you didn't see that CNBC special, this is what it's going to entail. So they're going to start with Hyundai. Hyundai's the vehicle manufacturer that they have a partnership with. This isn't a brand new partnership. Apparently this partnership dates back to 2018. They've worked with each other to put together a digital showroom before. They're working with one another to put their Amazon Echo system integrated within their vehicles. So that's another aspect of it moving forward. So not a new partnership. Right out of the gate, they're only going to be working with 8 different dealerships across the U.S. Well, when I say dealerships, umbrella dealerships, meaning, they have a couple. So there's 18 establishments spread throughout the U.S. That are actually going to be under this pilot program right out of the gate. And if you think about it, Amazon actually did something kind of like this before, right? They had Amazon Fresh, which was that, Amazon grocery store, produce store that they opened in Seattle. They tested it out and it was a success, and they ultimately expanded quite a bit, buying up a lot of Whole Foods, right, since then. So what is it going to look like? You're going to be able to go on Amazon, click around, click the Hyundai, the vehicle that you want, build it out. What exact trim do you want? What color do you want? Do you want leather interior? You're going to be able to build out this vehicle and click buy. You're going to be able to buy this vehicle. Obviously, there's going to be a number of other committees that Amazon's going to need to put together. They're going to have to put together a finance committee eventually, right? They're going to have to maybe eventually put together a trade-in committee. If you're going to trade in a vehicle, what is that process going to look like? But right out of the gate, Hyundai is only going to be offering Hyundai financing, right, through Hyundai. And if you're unable to get financing through Hyundai, your information will then be sent to the dealership of your choosing for them to maybe work out an alternative to get you other financing from a different lender. So that's what it's going to look like right out of the gate. Personally, I think it's going to be, I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome that they're leaning forward from my personal perspective. So with that, let's talk about, on paper, why this really is a great idea for the entire automotive market, right? For used and new vehicle market moving forward. So when you look at Amazon as a company, as an organization as a whole, they have 150 million Prime customers already. Prime, subscribers, right? So they already got a pretty huge customer base, right? And that's no shock to anybody, right? But in addition to that, what have they built? They built a great amount of loyalty within that customer base, right? So they have a great amount of loyalty because what do? Right now we click a couple buttons and 2 days later it shows up at your doorstep with a smiling face, right? So there's already that sense of loyalty that people have established with this company, right? In addition to that, I already kind of hinted at it, but their logistics is off the charts. Logistics of Amazon is second to none at this point. So I think that is a huge positive for them being able to launch something like this and have it be successful right out of the gate. At least that's what I'm hopeful for, given their pedigree, their track record at this point. In addition to that, what do most Americans hate doing? Most Americans hate the vehicle buying process, right? So, people, I think on average, when Americans go into dealerships, they spend an average of 4 hours in the seat, and more often than not, they don't leave happy or chipper, feeling great about the deal that they got. Of course, the new car jitters, people are always kind of happy about that, but more often than not, Americans feel like they could have maybe gotten a better deal, right? So they always kind of feel like the dealership itself and the salesmen and the sales reps there tend to take advantage of it. I mean, we saw that, especially during the pandemic, right? Dealerships pulling the wool over people's eyes, charging markups over MSRP just because they could, right? So we saw the level of distrust between Americans and dealerships in general, right, over the last few years. 90% of all buyers, though, today do research, plenty of research online before actually going to buy a vehicle. And why is that important? Right? So no longer do we have the days of old where people would just walk into a dealership, check around, maybe feel out a few different vehicles and drive home with a vehicle that they didn't really plan on buying that morning. Right? That doesn't happen anymore. You don't just go in there and feel out a bunch of vehicles. Very rarely does that happen, let me say that. 90% of all buyers today do a ton of homework and research online. They kind of figure out what they want. They figure out what vehicle they want, what trim they want, what color, all that stuff in advance, and they find a dealership that has that vehicle on their lot, and then, only then, will they go into the dealership. And more often than not, if you're like me, you're going to call that dealership and kind of arrange the deal in advance before you go in there and waste your time, right? Because nothing is worse than sitting in there and negotiating back and forth with a sales rep who's saying, let me go ask my manager. And they keep coming back and forth for 4 hours, right? Nothing is worse than that. So Americans hate, they despise the vehicle buying process for the most part, okay? And because of that, on that note, we saw companies like Carvana and Vroom really succeed during the pandemic, right? And that's because of that. It was kind of a more streamlined approach, more of a haggle-free process in a sense, where they didn't have to go back and forth for hours in an uncomfortable environment. So I digress. The whole Tesla model, though, is a very important correlation to make here, right? So Tesla has the luxury of being a direct-to-consumer purchase model, meaning, you can kind of just go online or you buy direct from Tesla. There's no middleman involved. There's no dealerships involved for them to maybe hike up prices, inflate, maybe tack on a few add-ons, some running boards that you didn't really want, but force you to pay for them. You don't have to worry about that. And honestly, if you think about any kind of Tesla owner, any Tesla owner that I don't know, if you're like me, everyone that I know that owns a Tesla, they were pretty happy with their purchase experience. I've never met a Tesla owner who was upset about their purchase experience. Maybe a couple that weren't too thrilled about the price they paid, but at the end of the day, it was never the purchase experience that was an adverse feeling or experience for them, right? You let me know if you've heard otherwise. So that direct-to-consumer model is great, right? And we're kind of getting closer to that. We're one step closer to doing that. I say one step. We're not totally there by doing this Amazon route because people will still have to select a dealership that's closest to them and then go pick up the vehicle from them. And probably, depending on, what their rules are from whatever lender they end up going with, may have to wet sign and stuff, actually do some paperwork there in person. So you're not totally cutting out that middleman through this Amazon pilot program, right? Whereas Tesla, we cut out the middleman totally. We have heard from different vehicle manufacturer CEOs that they would love to go to a Tesla model, but they can't. There's this little thing called franchise laws that protect, state franchise laws that protect their dealerships. They protect, their employees at the dealerships. It's from an economic impact standpoint in the region. They have all these protections in place where the vehicle manufacturer, Toyota, can't just sell directly to me. I can't just go online and buy from Toyota and have it show up at my doorstep. They can't. They won't allow it due to franchise laws, unfortunately. But like the Toyota CEO, like the Ford CEO, Volvo as well. I mean, there's a number of vehicle manufacturers who would prefer to do that, right? Cut out the middleman, because oftentimes it is the dealership that is making the experience negative, right? It's the dealership that's taking advantage of the customer, and the customers feel that. And what does that do? That ruins brand loyalty. It ruins the trust and returning customer concept to a particular manufacturer. It eradicates that. If we can get rid of the middleman, it gets rid of all the negative feelings that typically come from the vehicle buying experience, right? Now, you may be thinking, there's already an existing program like this. My initial knee-jerk reaction was, isn't there kind of something like that? We have the Costco vehicle purchase program. But if you look into that Costco vehicle purchase program, it has a lot of limitations. It's not just, you can't just go on their website and click a couple times and have a forerunner, show up to your local Costco. There's a lot more to it, right? A lot more limitations that you would find comparatively to what we are hopefully going to see with this Amazon concept here. In addition to that, we have websites like cargurus.com, we have cars.com, AutoTrader. Those are just lead generations, right? So, dealerships will, spam their inventory to those websites. They're advertised on those websites, but ultimately they're just going to kick you to the dealership and work directly with the dealership ultimately, right? You're not buying it through those mediums. So, again, it's not really scratching the itch that hopefully Amazon is going to be providing for a lot of people. And I think by the way I read it and by the way I heard it, Amazon is going to do something neat. They're going to offer up all the incentives that are available for that particular vehicle. They're all just going to be presented, right? Whether it's, first responder, firefighter, military discount, they're all just going to be presented. Obviously you're going to provide the necessary proof to get that incentive or get that discount rather, but they're all going to be transparently presented to you. And that's the key to it. And I think that's going to be the beauty of this. It's just transparency in the process. Even with CarMax, we lose that transparency, especially nowadays when they seemingly are very overpriced given the current market. They're just slow to keep up with the actual market values of vehicles. So I think the transparency and the timeliness of keeping up with necessary, like the vehicle market and pricing, is going to be much better on this Amazon pilot, in my opinion. Now let's talk about the bad, and perhaps the most important bit. Why do I believe that this could be a very bad thing for the automotive market, right? So for the new and used vehicle market eventually, how could this be an adverse thing? So although most people despise that car buying process like I talked about, there are still 44% of people who still want a personal connection to take place. They want that personal connection to accompany the vehicle buying experience. So although even probably a large group of that 44% despise the vehicle buying process, they probably despise the negotiation part, they still long to have that personal connection with that experience. Because, after all, think about it, it is your second largest purchase that you will ever make in your lifetime, with your home being the number one, of course. So it is a very large purchase, and you kind of want it to have a little bit more of an experience with it. I can see why that could be an issue for a lot of people. So that is a driving reason right there. However, that same study did show that 40% of people are like me in the sense that we want to negotiate. And if we don't have that opportunity to negotiate the no haggle price like we see with CarMax, we almost are like, forget that, I'm not doing that. Like, we never feel like we're getting the best deal that we could, right? Especially when you look at CarMax today. Their no haggle prices are through the roof. Their no haggle prices aren't even fair. So like, that does become a worry, perhaps, with Amazon, right? So 40% are like me. They want to be able to negotiate so they don't feel like they're getting the wool pulled over their eyes by the dealership or by the organization. Not going to be conducive with allocated vehicles. So this perhaps is the most important thing in my opinion. You guys know me, I like to buy kind of the harder to find vehicles, like the TRD Pros, but I try to get them in a particular color, or a Ford Raptor. If you want to I'm trying to shoot for a Raptor R next perhaps. Those are not going to be the options available on Amazon, right? I'm not going to just pop on Amazon next week and, oh, hey, cool, Ford Raptor R, an Avalanche Gray, buy, purchase, right? I'm not going to add to cart. I'm not going to be able to do that with the harder to find vehicles. So if it's a normal vehicle, like, Hyundai Elantra or whatever, like a very normal, massively overproduced vehicle, yeah, you're not going to have an issue at all. But if it's a very desirable vehicle, I don't think we're going to be successful in seeing this become a good medium for that, right? If you're like me. So if you're buying the vehicles like I like to buy, I don't think this is going to end up being the best medium for you. But for most people, when they hop on here, if they're trying to just get a Hyundai Elantra, this may be the best option for you. Click your few incentives, a couple discounts that you're eligible for, bada bing, bada boom, get approved through Hyundai, their finance department, and you're going to have a Hyundai Elantra show up at your local dealership in a few weeks, right? So I like that for people who are maybe aiming at just very run-of-the-mill normal vehicles. Another bad thing, in my opinion, is this is going to be, I may get flack from this, but this is going to be very much an EV-focused thing, right? So Amazon's a primary investor in Rivian. We know that. And Amazon in general, part of their mission statement is powering operations with 100% renewable energy by 2025. It was 2030, but they've kind of cut it short to 2025. So they're very much a green energy, renewable energy focused organization, much like many organizations of today, larger Fortune 500s, right? So that's not a shocker. But because of that, I don't think they're going to be selling Ram TRXs on here. Well, they're going away. We know that. But you get my point. They're not going to be selling the vehicles that I'm really interested in, and a lot of enthusiasts are interested in. These are going to be the EV-focused vehicles that are green energy. A lot of maybe Toyota Priuses might hit this. We don't know. So that's kind of I think a detriment in my personal opinion, right? In addition to that, I think a problem with this model right out of the gate, especially with such a limited number of dealerships supporting it right out of the gate, we're going to see a high likelihood of overcommitting the manufacturer. meaning, we're going to see a ton of orders right out of the gate, and they're not going to be able to satisfy those orders, especially in, high populated areas like Seattle, like San Francisco, locations that are likely going to see these huge influx of purchases on Amazon. They're not going to be able to commit and fulfill those orders in a timely fashion. That would be my concern right out of the gate, especially given the low number of dealerships supporting it with this pilot program in particular. So that is a negative. I do think we're going to see a little bit of the Walmart effect of this, right? And I think this is what's going to scare a lot of other dealerships. In my opinion, this is a good thing, but I can see how it could be an adverse thing, holistically speaking, right? Walmart effect being taking out the little guys, taking out the small dealerships. That's going to be a piece of it. It's going to be detrimental to Hyundai dealerships to some degree. But again, the vehicles are still being transported to their dealership lots, and people are going to have to go there to pick it up and sign the paperwork. So that's a piece of it. We're also going to see it be detrimental to organizations like CarMax, Carvana, and Vroom, right? This huge player entering the scene, Amazon entering the scene with such a huge customer base already, a loyal customer base, is likely going to squash companies like them. So I'll wrap up the video there, guys. I've already made this plenty long today, but I wanted to just kind of get your thoughts on this. Do you think Amazon is going to be a heavy hitter in the game? Do you think this is going to be a success right out of the gate when they do this pilot program with Hyundai? What are your honest thoughts? And perhaps the biggest question would be, do you think now is the right time for Amazon to implement this? Right, the current vehicle market is in despair, right? It's spiraling right now, and now they're trying to enter into the scene. So I wonder, is now the best time for Amazon to do this? So let me know what your thoughts are. As always, I do appreciate you watching. If you find any kind of value in my videos, I would appreciate it if you would consider liking and subscribing at this point. I would greatly appreciate it. So thanks for watching as always. Until next time.